Folks, hello. It would help if I switched my microphone on, wouldn't it? I was actually sitting here for a couple of seconds before I started recording, talking to myself, which is a good way to start any video as far as I'm concerned. We are on Tuesday right now. I hope you're having a wonderful start to your week. If you want any models in the near future, and you are even international, head on down to Composite Games in the description down below, and you can find a promo code Northern Exile where you get 5% off at checkout. You already get 20% off at checkout. That could be a big thing for you if you get into any more models in the near future. Anyway, let's get on with it, shall we? If you like what I do, the Patreon is also down below. If you want to buy me a beer, it's my birthday pretty soon. Guilt. Feel it. Let's get into some Age of Sigmar, shall we? Because I'm going to be quite honest with you guys. AOS is not my favourite thing in the entire world. I mean, it's not exactly my least favourite thing, but it's something that, when I was at Games Workshop, it was more of an afterthought compared to everything else that had ever gone on. All they seemed to do with Age of Sigmar was bring it into the realm of 40k. What I mean by that is, I think the nuking of the old world and the embrace of Age of Sigmar was a tacit admission by Games Workshop that they were never likely to create anything as catchy or as all-encompassing as Warhammer 40,000, which is a shame. But I'll explain that as we go through this video. So the video is going to be more about the lore, more about how I believe it's been shaped and how I believe it's going in general, rather than going into any sort of like in-depth discussion on any certain faction. I could do that in future if you guys would like that. This is more of a discussion on what the hell Age of Sigmar is, how it came about, and what its main strengths and weaknesses as an entire setting are. So Age of Sigmar, as a setting for a game to take place in, is exactly that, right? It is a setting for you to roll dice in. It's nothing more than that. It literally is nothing more than that. It has no real solidified lore. Yes, I'm sure you can go on the wiki and show me a 500-word post by Games Workshop on what the Stormcast Eternals are currently doing. That doesn't sustain me as lore, to be honest with you. It is a snapshot. Each and everything you see in Age of Sigmar is a snapshot of something cool that could be going on in Age of Sigmar. We don't have in this year this happened, and this year this happened. And to be fair, the old world also didn't have that either. But the old world had thousands of years of history to call back on and to lean back on in terms of a solid foundation. I mean, sure, in Age of Sigmar, events happen, but the stakes are almost non-existent when mortals can simply be regurgitated by their gods at a moment's notice. And yes, that does happen in Age of Sigmar. A lot of the time, if somebody dies, they'll just be brought back, because their gods are like, no, I like this person, I'll bring them back, right? It is what it is, right? We're going to get into more in depth as we go on, I'm not going to be vague. For every square inch of land taken by one god from another in Age of Sigmar, the same god can simply make more land to rule if he wants. So if you go into like the realm of fire, and you take land from Khorne, if he really wants to, he just creates more land somewhere else, right? It is like an ever-expanding chessboard with constantly spawning pieces. Sure, there is carnage, but what's the point? Age of Sigmar is what would happen to Warhammer 40,000 if the Orcs won. It's hell and pointless destruction for everybody but the Orcs. I mean, sorry, Oryx, whatever the hell they're called now. I like that analogy, though. I like that analogy. That is one of the main analogies of Age of Sigmar that I've heard on Reddit and other places. It is like an ever-expanding chessboard that never stops expanding, you know? Sure, there's lots of stuff to play with, but it's pointless. You're never going to win, and nothing's ever going to change. By design, though, as we've said before, Games Workshop are cowardly. They don't want anybody getting their knickers in a twist by losing in the lore, right? What's the best way of doing that? Is making sure nobody ever loses, because it's Age of Sigmar, and it's completely nonsensical. Anyway, the mortal realms, though, and I'm going to separate this video into two parts, the good and the bad, as I normally do, but these are kind of intertwined, because Age of Sigmar's strengths and weaknesses are so closely linked that it's almost impossible to pull them apart, right? The mortal realms are deceptively elegant. They are the coalesced forms of the broken Warhammer world mixed with magic. That's literally what they are. So when the old world was destroyed, it flew out into the void and slowly coalesced back into 8 new worlds. Don't ask me how that works, it just does, right? There are 8 of them that roughly represent each of the 8 winds of magic that were once present in the Warhammer world. It's nice, it's elegant, but frustratingly vague and kind of nonsensical. So each of the winds of magic that were in the old Warhammer world, each of them now has their own realm of which things happen, right? Chaos once again conquering these realms, as it does at the start of Age of Sigmar. Chaos conquers most of the realms, right? So Chaos once again conquering these realms, only for them to be the subject of a war by Sigmar and his free peoples, who then establish a new status quo of many mortal nations, none of which have named, vagueness, of course, is just a lazy retelling of the Indomitus Crusade, or even the Great Crusade from 40k. Both are too similar to the events that kick off the Age of Sigmar, right? So, to kick off Age of Sigmar, Chaos rules everything, and Rabute Gilliman, Sigmar, takes his Space Marines, Stormcast Eternals, and leads a Great Crusade. He leads a Sigmar war, a reclamation war against the realms, and takes a lot of them back for the mortal realms, right? Okay. Are you seeing the problem? It is the height of absolute laziness where Games Workshop have sat back and gone, how are we going to do a new setting? I've got it. We don't. We just do the same one that we've always done. We just give it a nice fantasy coat of paint. Age of Sigmar lore is taking the Warhammer fantasy elements, deleting them, and simply making cosmic magic kind of fantasy wars slapped onto a Warhammer 40,000 skeleton. Age of Sigmar resembles 40k with the grimdark tech stripped away, and the juvenile soft magic turned up to 11. That's literally where we are. The juvenile soft magic. What do I mean by soft magic? So, I've said this in other videos, there are 2 types of magic. There are soft magic and hard magic, right? And your magic system in your setting can come anywhere in between those. Or on one of the ends, right? Hard magic is what I prefer. I prefer hard magic systems. I prefer magic systems with very real limitations. And I prefer the Brandon Sanderson way of looking at magic systems, in that a magic system is only as interesting as its limitations, right? The limitations of where and when you can do the magic is more interesting than the magic itself. That's a very hard magic system that does that, right? Harry Potter has elements of this. It's a very soft magic system with a core of hard magic, of what's possible and what isn't. But it's soft in that J.K. Rowling can pretty much invent anything that she wants, and it kind of works within the magic system, It's an ingenious way of doing a magic system. Probably one of the best ones in fiction, to be honest with you, even though I'm not that much of a Harry Potter fan. Whereas soft magic systems are magic systems that are, for want of a better word, I consider them lazy. They're magic systems that basically do anything that the author needs whenever the author needs them to do it. Any story that you've read where the lead character keeps inventing a magical MacGuffin, or getting out of it with a new magical spell that they've somehow learned, or something just happens to do with magic that gets them out of dodge, like a Deus Ex Machina kind of a thing, that's soft magic, right? There are no rules or rhymes or regulations to do with that magic system. And that is the kind of magic that's in Age of Sigmar. One of the nice things about the Warhammer world, the old world, was that its magic system was actually a hard magic system disguised as a soft magic system. You had the colleges of magic within the Empire, right? Things like that. You knew exactly how magic worked elsewhere with the winds of magic and the tides of chaos and all of that. You knew what the costs were to dealing with that kind of magic without any due precautions, right? Turning into a Chaos Spawn, for instance. So it was a very soft magical system in that a lot of things could happen in the Warhammer setting. Magic could basically do anything. Eventually, right? Given enough power and enough time and enough preparation. But the beautiful thing was, there were certain steps and things that you had to do to protect yourself, or you were just going to explode into 1,000 pieces by doing it. That's a hard magic setting masquerading as a soft one, and I love it. Age of Sigmar doesn't even take that preamble. It doesn't care. It's a soft magic setting, and magic in Age of Sigmar can do anything at any time for any reason. If you've ever read an Age of Sigmar novel, and I've now read 3, I know, not very many, but that's all a good stomach, right? The magic in those systems makes my skin crawl. There is no explanation of how it works. There's no explanation of where it really comes from. It just does things, and it's there. And it does things because the author needs them to do things, rather than them actually being interesting magic systems. I could take that and extrapolate it for the entirety of Age of Sigmar, to be honest with you. Let's talk about the realms. The realms are very important. And, again, as the map that you're seeing now, when Games Workshop try to do a really cool world within Age of Sigmar, they actually do a pretty decent job of doing that. It's just that they don't. In all general relativity, they don't. Each of the realms sounds cool, but is given barely a paragraph of description, and the maps of the realms look like something from a drug addict's dream. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the artwork of the realm of metal and how that works. You've got this like really big like silver dragon holding like several different pieces of land in place. It's just mental. It looks like a tattoo, right? It's not a coherent world. It's screaming at you, you know? It was made by a drug addict. How can you build anything to last here in a world like that? You can't, but that's kind of the point. It's a setting for you to play games of Age of Sigmar in, not a living, breathing world like the old world was. To me, though, this removes its viability as a setting in the first place. Even Azir, the realm of Sigmar himself, barely gets 10 bullet points of description and a short paragraph as its central thesis in the core book. This is the core Age of Sigmar book, and the main place where you're going to be spending most of your time if you're one of the Order guys, you know, one of the most best-selling armies, right? You get 10 bullet points of what this place looks like and a short paragraph. Are you shitting me? Is that what we're doing now? I mean, I put more effort into the making of this video than Games Workshop did into making the Mortal Realms. I kid you not. This video script of notes is around 4,000 words long. Games Workshop can barely be bothered to give you a paragraph describing an entire realm of the new setting. And not just any realm, Sigmar's realm, in a world and game called Age of fucking Sigmar. This is sad. Very, very sad. Age of Sigmar does not deserve creators like Arvandus, his link will be in the description down below, who write and tell their own stories, fleshing out the mortal realms that Games Workshop couldn't be bothered to think up. If this is the point, if Games Workshop wants Age of Sigmar to be this tapestry and starting point for you to jump off of and write your own stuff, that's commendable. Then maybe they should stop cutting down anyone who dares use their IP for a private, free project, even on YouTube. Just saying. Just saying. If this is really what Age of Sigmar is, and it's a jumping off point for creative people to make creative things, then maybe Games Workshop should allow those people to share those things. Just a thought. Even then, though, the whole point of giving people a foundation to build off of is that you give the foundation. Games Workshop have not even given you the footings and mud below a house, never mind the foundations on which to build your own stuff. So those are the key weaknesses of Age of Sigmar as a concept for me. Let's move on to some strengths, but there will also be some weaknesses in here as well, because the two are just too intertwined to separate, right? The key strength of Age of Sigmar lies in its malleable nature and the openness of its setting in being able to be taken and spun by almost anyone into something great. Across the internet are countless settings and realms drawn up by folks eager to use the Age of Sigmar setting as a jumping off point for one of their own. The only real shame is that Games Workshop will come down hard on anybody seeking to put such a thing on YouTube or out there in any official capacity. This means you're never likely to hold their work in your own hands, no matter how diligently they work at their own worlds. Warhammer has the best fans in the world, and when they are weaponized, they can create absolute wonders to play, build, and paint within. The problem is, Games Workshop's overzealousness in protecting their own IPs means that the key strength of Age of Sigmar, in the fact that it's giving you, trying to give you a foundation to build your own stuff, will never be utilized properly because they don't want you to. They just want you to buy models and shut up. Age of Sigmar's standoff nature when it comes to solid facts and its lore means it is natural to invent your own worlds, and I think this is actually Games Workshop saying, hey, do you think you can do better? Have at it. Less work for us anyway. Win-win. You're going to buy some more models. And this may be the case. Instead of feeling constant pressure about the direction of the lore, instead, Games Workshop relies on you to give the mortal realm space and permanence. The issue is, if they don't care about that space and permanence, why should you? It's a question I want you to think about. If they don't give a shit, why should you? It's genius what they're trying to do, right? They don't want to write their own lore because they don't want to be getting it in the neck all the time like they have been in Warhammer 40,000 for the past 30 years. They want a setting that sells models. They don't want a setting that excites the mind. They want to sell models. And they're making you do the lore for those models. It's incredible, really. Even making this video, I have visions in my head of the Exile-verse version of Age of Sigmar, right? Making our own setting together and using the models to play out epic battles from the setting we've made together. In the end, I believe that is what Age of Sigmar is for. It's not a tangible setting because it's not supposed to be. Even the realms are described as vaguely spherical in overall shape, and that's in the actual core book as well. This means that whilst the setting is indeed able to be plied away in any way the reader would like, it has no permanence or stakes at all. Even the inner mechanics of the world leave those wanting serious consequences for victories and defeats scratching their heads. All of the souls of those who died in the old world were simply reborn in the realms. Not only does this take away the last shred of dignity the old world had to just die and take its great characters with it, it means that if it can be done once, it can be done again, right? The realms, exist in a sea of souls kind of a thing, right? And as far as we know, those souls eventually return to life once more in one of the realms. They don't just die, right? They don't just go away. They come back. Whilst this is a great idea, and one best used in Pillars of Eternity, right? If you've never seen the game Pillars of Eternity, it is probably one of the best reincarnation mechanics that I've ever seen in any sort of medium. The entire thing is based on a thing called the Wheel. And that's so when you die in Pillars of Eternity, which is a fantasy setting loosely based on Renaissance architecture, you die and your soul goes to the wheel. It goes into the wheel and it goes around and it comes back and it's reborn in another body when that person's born, right? Now, that leads to so many really cool things like animancers and people being, mental illness being described as a soul sickness. It's amazing. So, for instance, you could be really depressed in Pillars of Eternity and be like, I'm so depressed all the time and I don't know why. Something's missing from my life. Well, a soul mage or an animancer will come up to you and examine your soul and will see through its weave like, ooh, there's another half to your soul that's out there somewhere. You have a soulmate that you haven't met yet, and I'm going to introduce you to her. They will literally sense where that person is, bring you together, and you guys have the most amazing life together because you're two halves of the same soul in different bodies that are now linked together. How lovely and amazing is that from a setting standpoint, and how to use souls coming back into a setting in a reincarnating way. That's brilliant, but it still means you don't want to die because you don't want to lose the experiences that you've already accumulated. In Age of Sigmar, who gives a fuck? You're going to go away and you're going to just come back again. Who cares? It steals permanence and stakes from many of the characters within the setting. If you're important enough in Age of Sigmar, right? If you're some random mook, don't get me wrong. If you die, that's probably it for you, right? You're going to be consumed by a god somewhere or something. But if you're a really important character, right? If you're a really important character who's quite important to a god's schemes, you're never going to die. You're never going to die. Archeon will never die, right? Any of the big orc characters, any of the big characters, if you have a named character in any army, they're immortal. They're never going to die. Because even if they do, their soul will come back eventually, or even instantly into another body that has been made by their god. They're never going to die. It steals all permanence and stakes from the characters within the setting, because Games Workshop are terrified of just letting you lose in the lore. It's a setting for a game. It's not a setting. Let's take a look at what dying looks like for some of the main factions, shall we? For Stormcast Eternals, you simply come back when Sigmar brings you back in his nice realm capital, like dying was some sort of bad dream. Sure, there is less of you each time he does it, but still, you have many chances to fall before this ever happens. Are you an orc? Who cares? Gork and Mork will slug you back to life if you fought well enough, and if you didn't, then you'll be glad you're dead anyway. Death Grand Alliance? Yeah, forget about it. You'll come back as often as Nagash needs you to, you little bitch. Chaos? Do I even need to go there? Seriously? There is no permanence of action within Age of Sigmar. This means it is fantastic as a no-holds-barred playground for the imagination and the armies fighting on the tabletop. It really is stellar for doing that. It does exactly what it says on the tin. The only issue is, in its quest to have you do all of the lore legwork, the setting loses all ground and becomes a vague, wishy-washy, hand-waving nonsense of a setting that most other writers have quite rightly panned. I have said it before and I'll say it again. If they don't care, why should you? I won't get into a huge reset of Age of Sigmar, like I usually do with different factions, because this is a whole setting we're talking about, as we'd be here all day, and I'd like to build the Exile-verse in Age of Sigmar one day, with your help, maybe with your help. This is a realm of exiles we have tried to get started on the channel a few times, but work keeps pulling me away from it, right? Work keeps getting more busy and more busy and more busy as things go on. Perhaps in time, Age of Sigmar can form the basis of it, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, if I were going to fix Age of Sigmar, I would keep the realms, keep all of the separate realms, but make each of them a defined and solid planet. Separate worlds linked by the realm gates. On each planet, I would give one or two massive empires or kingdoms that are at war, surrounded by satellite states, with a clear notion that not all the world is charted, and that kingdoms and empires are rising and falling across them all the time. I would take away the get out of jail free cards. When people die in this setting, they die for good, thanks to Nagash, we may as well use him, absorbing their souls on death. No exceptions, no takebacks. In fact, Nagash's main aim is to absorb all of the souls of the greatest heroes of the mortal realms, like Archeon, and others, so that he can elevate himself above all of the other gods and bring a second end times where everybody dies to feed him and he rules the cosmos for all eternity. Endgame level stuff, right? This will likely never happen in the setting, but it's a good reason to do away with the constant removal of stakes. To inject these on a local level, every god has the power knows of Nagash's new plan, and his ability to absorb souls. That means that even the Chaos Gods see their followers as precious things, commodities, right? Everybody is desperate to unite the entire realms under their banner to finally cast down Nagash and end his nefarious plan. Job done, right? To do this, kingdoms fight over resources, land and territory, just like they did in the old world, but on a massive scale. We can even have things called god shards. This is quite a random thing. Within the realms, buried in the earth, that are the crystallized forms of the gods who died in the end times, mainly the elven gods, right? With pieces of these shards, you can store a soul so that it can't go to Nagash. Kind of like we do in Warhammer, right? We steal that if you're going to steal something from Warhammer 40,000, make sure it's something small, right? Just a little hint that things are similar. These gems can power technology and other vast weapons. So whilst folks cannot be reborn cheaply, they can hold off the end times in their own way by holding this vital resource. And it's something more for powers to fight over on planets. These are just a few ideas of how to make the mortal realms more solid, tangible, and defined, while still remaining malleable, so that you can get your own writing chops in there and make your own vast kingdoms and empires if you want to. It looks like Games Workshop gives a damn if they put effort into the core of the mortal realms, whilst giving the rest to the community to go crazy with. It works for 40k, why can't it work here? I'm not saying it should be as restrictive as 40k can be. We can keep it fast and loose, sure. But some structure is needed. When I turn over a rock in your world, I want to see soil, bugs, and bits of dirt. I don't want to see the board planks of the movie set you built your world in to sell some fucking models. What do you guys think? Am I completely off the walls? Am I wrong? The one thing that I do love Age of Sigmar for is those lovely, lovely models, and they deserve a better setting than what we have. What would you guys do with Age of Sigmar? Let me know in the comment section down below. I love you a long time. I will see you tomorrow for some more Hobby Nightmares. Have a wonderful rest of your day. See you later. Bye.